This is a quick demo of the state of Lyft in 2023. I just want to show off some of the awesome things that have been added to Lyft over the last couple of years. Um, First off, something you might notice here is this free trial scan. This is a great new feature that definitely helps a lot in general with showing off what Lyft can do. It lets anybody with pretty much no overhead just enter a GitHub repository URL for a public repository and get a kind of trial report to demonstrate some of the things it can find. So for example, if we put in a link here to my clone of the Maven repository and satisfy the CAPTCHA, we can kick off a free scan. And once that scan starts here, we'll be redirected to this page. We can wait here, or we can copy this URL and come back and check later. If you look at the build logs here, you can get some more information about the progress as it goes. Right now it's probably just being queued up. Once the job is started, you'll start to see information flowing here. And there it goes. You can see now the job is running. And you're going to see it go through several different tools here to analyze this repository for vulnerable dependencies and for various code quality issues. Once the trial scan is done, you can see your trial report here. You'll see here the various code quality findings that it has. You can see some of the different tools that it ran. It ran infer, findsec bugs, error prone, and you can filter on these various tools if you want to narrow down this list. As I'll show later, a lot of times how you'd actually interact with this is through a pull request, where it's only going to comment on new findings that are added, but this report is comprehensive, showing everything that's in the existing code base. If you come over here, you can find out information about vulnerabilities you may have in your dependencies. You can also download a full BOM in the Cyclone DX format, which is quickly becoming the standard for representing software bill of materials. Down here you can see the tree view, which is showing you the different dependencies you have and where they fall in the tree. For example, this one, which is a medium criticality, is in a transitive dependency, and that transitive dependency belongs to Maven core here. And you can see also the project here. These are like the different modules in your project. You can collapse any of these. You can see here, this is a list of the tools that are ran and if they succeeded. And back over here is the build logs we were just looking at, which just shows you some more detailed output of what was happening as these various tools were ran. That can be useful for debugging, and it's also just kind of nice to be able to watch this progress while the scan runs. And you can see up here some logos for various other Sonatype products that you might want to check out. These are various paid offerings that we have. And here is where you could then go to install Lyft, which is going to take you to where you would install the GitHub integration. Once you've installed Lyft, another great feature is that it integrates automatically with GitHub. This means that you actually don't necessarily need to even spend a lot of time in this web console. Once Lyft is all installed and set up, it will make comments on your pull requests. And this is primarily how you'll end up interacting with Lyft. So for example, if you're adding a new dependency here that has a vulnerability, it's going to make a comment about that here and highlight the area in the POM or package JSON file or whatever the appropriate ecosystem is where you're adding that dependency. It's also going to make code quality comments in this form. So like right here, for example, it's telling me that I'm catching this exception and I'm not doing anything with it, which is a smell. Maybe I want to do that, but probably not. Often something like that's a mistake or something that you did when you were just trying to get the code work, but that you might not want to let get into production. Now you can always get from these into the actual report where they were produced. And you'll see down here at the bottom a link to the report here. And so you can come over to the web console and you can look at some of these things if you'd like. You can also go over here and see, I think especially for vulnerable dependencies, this view is sometimes nicer than what you get in GitHub because you can see the tree and how the dependency relates. You can kind of see if the vulnerability is a direct dependency or a transitive dependency. So for example, right here, I'm looking at these and I can see that several of these vulnerabilities it's telling me about actually are transitive dependencies that all fall under this single direct dependency here. So if I was going to try to resolve this, probably what I would start with is actually trying to see if I can bump the version on this direct dependency rather than dealing with all these other ones. Another thing you can do here is that if, say, I didn't care about this particular thing in this context of this PR, there is this Sonabot, and I can choose to tell it to, for example, ignore this, and then it's going to treat this as resolved for the purposes of this PR, which basically just means that eventually, if I were to say ignore all these, or say more likely ignore one or two and fix some of them, then eventually down here next to Sonatype lift, this would eventually go green for the purposes of this PR. And because I'm interacting with this bot directly here on the PR, anyone else in my organization that's doing PR review of this can see that conversation, that dialogue, and can see that, oh yes, the static analysis tool found a problem. The problem was ignored. It was ignored for, we can have a dialogue about that if we want. I could come in and question that and say, hey, why did you ignore this? That's a good finding. Or I might look at it and be like, yeah, okay, I see why they ignored that. Creates a nice auditable trail of what was found and what was ignored and why and so forth. Once you've signed up and installed Lyft, in addition to getting comments made on your PRs, you can also come to this web console that we're at anytime, and you'll be taken to your main repository selection page here. And this is a place where you can look at like all the various repositories that you've pulled into Lyft, and you can, if you want, just trigger a base scan of that project. If you click this button here, it's going to, for example, scan just whatever the default repository is. This is kind of a shortcut. Or you can, let's go ahead and search for one here. You can go ahead and click instead view details. And this page is going to show you all the various jobs that have been run in the past, either through this interface or triggered by a PR. And you can also here select any of the various branches you want to scan. This gives you a lot more control than the trial, which just does the default branch and doesn't give you, any of this. I'm going to look at one here. Let's look at Maven again. I'm going to pull up one of my past reports for Maven here and show you something else that wasn't available in the trial report, but that you get with the actual Lyft once you sign up. If you come over here, there's this technical debt tab. Now, this doesn't work for all ecosystems. This is only supported for Java right now, but this is a pretty cool feature that tries to highlight smells in your code. In particular, right now, it's focused on this concept of God classes, which basically God classes in Java or in any object-oriented ecosystem are basically classes that seem like they're trying to be too many things to too many people. They have really high cyclomatic complexity, so they probably have lots of functions, lots of dependencies, lots of things calling into them. It's basically a good indication that these things should be broken up and split, that they're trying to be concerned with too many domains. So you can see here, this graph tries to help show you where you should start by comparing the how much a particular class is changing, along with like the potential effort to refactor it. So you can identify things where there is, perhaps a lot of change but low effort, and those will kind of cluster so you can see maybe places that'd be a good spot to take a start. We kind of highlight a few up here at the top that we think are probably the best top 3 to start with. So in this case, default graph builder, default model validator test, and default Maven. That pretty much wraps it up. One more fun thing to show, every page needs a good 404. So on a final note, let's end with that. So we've got our 404, oops, wrong floor, checkout lift. I hope you enjoy it.